great if you used your cell phone, smartphone, dumb phone, or other electronics. If you could please make sure it's off or on vibrate. The contestants would greatly appreciate that. For Table Topics contest, the order is Carol Villado, 7th. Ron Gazzo, 6th. Vasco is not here today. Travis Lodolinsky, 3rd. Dana Mitnick, 1st. Alexis Sanders, 5th. Charlie Wilson, 2nd. And Bill Zimmerman, 4th. Does anyone need me to repeat that? Then let the contest begin. Dana Mitnick. Suppose you could go back in time and talk to yourself at the age of 10. What advice would you give yourself? Suppose you could go back in time and talk to yourself at the age of 10. What advice would you give yourself? Dana Mitnick.
Thank you, Madam Contest Chair. Fellow Toastmasters, and our welcome guests, what would I tell the 10-year-old Dana Mitnick? This is what I would tell the 10-year-old Dana Mitnick. It's still a big world out there. You're now entering that tween or preteen stage. Don't lose the excitement of discovery. Work hard, study hard in school. Use the talents that God gave you to be a shining light. Yes, this is a lot to take in at such a young age. Yet, I know you, 10-year-old Dana. You're kind of like me. I did the same things when I was 10. Listen, 10-year-old Dana. If you deviate in any way, shape, or form from who you are and what your interests are, I guarantee you, you will fail. So, that's not an option. As Jack Webb, who's best known for being Sergeant Joe Friday on Dragnet, would say, just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts, sir. Be entertaining and be humorous as well. Strike that balance. And I guarantee you, 10-year-old Dana Mitnick, you will go very far in your life's journey. Madam Contest Chair.
If we could please have 1 minute of silence for the judges.
Time.
Charlie Wilson. yourself at the age of 10? What advice would you give yourself? Suppose you could go back in time and talk to yourself at the age of 10. What advice would you give yourself? Charlie Wilson.
Madam Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests. I spend most of my life giving myself advice, but let me go back to the age of 10. You've all heard stories about my life, but I'm going to tell you something that I've never told anyone, not even my wife. I was a dork. When I was a kid, I was always the last picked, if I was picked at all, for sports. So I stayed at home a lot and I read. And when I was 10 years old, I read about a Frenchman who had died in 1892. And he was believed to be the last person who ever lived who knew everything there was to know. So at the age of 10, I made a vow that I would study until I knew everything there was to know. At night when I went to bed, the first thing in my prayers was, help me learn everything there is to know so that I can answer any question in an instant. And then as I got older, into my mid-teens, UFOs started flying around. And I hoped that an alien would pick me up and inject me with something so that I would know everything in the world. And it didn't happen. But luckily, someone else did it for me. There is something in my pocket, not in my pocket, but back there, that I can pull out of my pocket and in an instant find the answer to any question in the world. So while I didn't do it, somebody did it for me. Madam Contest Chair.
Time.
Travis Litolinsky. Suppose you could go back in time and talk to yourself at the age of 10. What advice would you give yourself? Suppose you could go back in time and talk to yourself at the age of 10. What advice would you give yourself? Travis Litolinsky.
Suppose I would go back in time to the age of 10, and what would I say to myself? Fellow Toastmasters, Madam Chair, honored guests. I recently had emergency tooth surgery where they had to go in and rip out one of my teeth. This was one of the most unpleasant experiences. As a matter of fact, I'm still dealing with repercussions. I'd go and tell myself, Travis, take better care of your teeth. Floss every day, use mouthwash, and brush like your life depended on it. Because the amount of pain that I was in, and am still in, is ridiculous. I can't fathom putting anybody through that type of pain anymore than I already put myself through. Now luckily, my dentist was actually a good friend of mine. And he says, Travis, we can send you to a root specialist. I said, Doc, I'm not in the tooth-saving business. Just pull it out. But I would tell myself to take much better care of my teeth. Thank you very much.
Time.
Bill Zimmerman. Suppose you could go back in time and talk to yourself at the age of 10. What advice would you give yourself? Suppose you could go back in time and talk to yourself at the age of 10. What advice would you give yourself? Bill Zimmerman.
Go back to being 10. So going back in time, loosen up a little bit. Time travel, I think you need to be loose. If I was going back to talk to me at age 10, I would try to encourage myself to be more like a Toastmaster. When I was a kid, I liked to be by myself a lot. And I lived in a country and there weren't a lot of friends, not a lot of kids running around close by. So I kind of kept to myself. I had a lot of creativity, and that kind of came out in taking walks in the woods and pretending I was a cowboy or a cop or whatever, and playing with toys in the basement. So I would do all that stuff, and although that alone time was a lot of fun, I wish I would have been more of a people person. That kid who had no problem going up to people, introducing himself, shaking their hands, giving them a nice big smile, just like Toastmasters do. I would have told myself not to be scared. That everyone is a potential friend. And with a smile and a positive attitude, they could be your friend in no time. Yeah, I would just tell myself, hey, playing in the basement with the G.I. Joes can be a lot of fun. You can create this whole world right there. That's pretty cool. But there's a whole world out there of new people to meet. And the sooner you get started, the better. Madam Contest Chair?
Time.
Alexis Sanders. Suppose you could go back in time and talk to yourself at the age of 10. What advice would you give yourself? Suppose you could go back in time and talk to yourself at the age of 10. What advice would you give yourself, Alexis Sanders?
Fellow Toastmasters, especially Madam Contest Chair and honored guest, if I were to go back to the age of 10 and give myself advice, I would tell myself, Alexis, you are more powerful than you can ever imagine. You can do more things than you could ever think of, and all you need to do is be there. That's it. Come. Every day, we have these situations where we're forced to just be there. Sometimes we're nervous, sometimes we're scared. I know my heart's beating right now like crazy. At the same time, all it takes is just for you to stand up and try. Today, we've seen many excellent speakers, some people who have spoken for probably their entire lives. Well, hopefully at least since they were 2. But at the same time, they've worked on their craft, and they're not just amazing because they've practiced or because they're naturally gifted, but because they're here, because they gave it effort and because they tried. And that's so important. And so I know this is kind of against the Toastmaster rules, but I'd like to thank you guys all for setting such a great example and for showing up and being here, being present, and giving me the confidence to stand on this stage.
Time.
Ron Gazzo. Suppose you could go back in time and talk to yourself at the age of 10. What advice would you give yourself? Suppose you could go back in time and talk to yourself at the age of 10. What advice would you give yourself? Ron Gazzo.
If I could go back to the age of 10, I would change something that happened in my life. I remember it very vividly. There we were on vacation. It was Stone Harbor, New Jersey. I was with my brother. He was so gregarious, he would go to this fellow's house we met at the beach every morning, and we'd get his big rubber raft. We'd go out in the ocean. Oh, was that fun. We would just ride that all day long. Then there was that one day. My dad was so thoughtful, he would always keep an eye on us, but not that afternoon. We took the rubber raft, we went out. All of a sudden, I looked to the shore. People were getting smaller. I put my feet down, I can't touch anymore. My brother became a little excited also. He was a better swimmer than me. I started to scream. We looked out, and sure enough, there was the lifeguards in a big wooden boat. There was 2 of them. They came out to rescue us. This little 10-year-old. Oh, was I happy. He took us into shore. My dad was beside himself. How could I do this? And I think he got caught up with a couple of bikinis on the beach. It can happen to anybody. But it worked out so well. To that day, he never forgave himself. My brother and I were so thankful that we were able to survive this. And the lesson I learned is the ocean is a wonderful place to be in, but it's not always your friend, and you have to respect it. Madam Clerk, this chair.
Time.
Carol Galato. Suppose you could go back in time and talk to yourself at the age of 10. What advice would you give yourself? Suppose you could go back in time and talk to yourself at the age of 10. What advice would you give yourself, Carol Galato?
Thank you, Contest Chair. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, 10 was a wonderful age for me, unless swimming. Swimming, I could never learn to swim. I was the only child in our neighborhood who went for 3 terms of 1 week a time to the Y. Why? Because I never got past dunking my head under the water without holding my nose. I failed. Every Friday, I was sick. Friday was test day. I couldn't go. I could not make myself go. I'd have to round up another group of friends to go with me for the next session, hoping that those friends, that friendship, would help me get past that fear. I was fearless as long as I had a life jacket on. I could swim from here to there. But make me swim by myself wasn't ever going to happen. So at the age of 10, if I could go back and talk to myself, I would say, hey, don't be such a dodo. Let your fingers off your nose and swim away. Thank you.
give all the contestants a round of applause. Now time to interview the contestants. So first I can have all the humorous speech contestants only come stand over here. First up is Mike Dalton. What club do you belong to, Mike? Oh, not getting that.
Almost works. I'm a member of the Claysburg Club and then also the Achievers Advance Club.
Yes, I should have said and/or clubs. And how long have you been a Toastmaster?
23 years.
23 years. I see that your favorite quote is, "If you will change everything, will change for you," by Jim Rohn.
Right. Yes.
Can you tell us more about that?
I just like him as a motivational speaker. He's not real rah-rah, and I think if you were to sum up everything he says, that would do it. If you will change, everything will change for you. And yeah, I think our table topic, that was what it was. You go back and tell that 10-year-old, what would you change? And everything will change for you if you take this advice. So.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Carol Galato. You can come back up, Mike. Once we're done, we're going to get a group
All right.
picture. He's trying to get out of everything.
I'm testing you.
See if I'm paying attention. Thank you. What clubs and/or clubs do you belong to?
Well, I am a charter member of the Allegheny Mountains Club here in the Altoona area, and I'm also a member of the Johnstown Club.
And how long have you been a Toastmaster?
I have been involved with Toastmasters probably about 8 years.
I really like your quote. "Laughter is like a mini vacation" by Joan Rivers. Can you tell us why that's your favorite quote?
Actually, I started my speech at the area level by saying that quote. I had heard it right before I traveled to Johnstown. And I thought about that, and that's so true. If you can laugh, we laugh at ourselves. If we can laugh at situations, it does bring out the endorphins in your body, and it makes you feel good, like a vacation should.
Thank you. Nate Stevens. Nate, what club and/or clubs do you belong to?
I'm in the Penn Hills Club.
And how long have you been a
I've
Toastmaster?
been in Toastmasters 12 years now.
I like your quote as well. "Be the change you wish to see in the world" by John Dee. Can you tell us more about that?
I like that quote because we see a lot of things we don't like in life, but who is willing to actually step forward and make those changes, actually give an example of how to make things better? That's why I chose that.
Thank you. Gina Wakowitz. What club and/or clubs do you belong to?
Currently, I belong to the State College Club in 1219, and then we are chartering a new club in Lock Haven with the company that I work for. We don't have a name yet.
And how long have you been a Toastmaster?
About 6 years.
I like your quote, "Just do it" by Nike. How does that resonate with you?
I've been in so many business meetings where we just don't utilize our time properly, and we come out of the meeting with a bunch of action item plans that never get executed until the next meeting where we discuss them again. And so, ever since I've been in the career world, coming out of a lot of sports, I just have always thought to myself, can we just do it already? Stop talking about it, just go do it. So, that's why I like that.
Thank you. Last but not least, Sam Whitaker.
Greensburg Toastmasters.
And how long have you been a Toastmaster?
Initially, I was going to ask that. I've been a member for 32 years.
Wow.
I joined when I was 7, so I'm only 39.
And you didn't put a favorite quote. I was trying to keep on trend there. Do you have one that you could share with
I'm
us?
a big believer that we should learn how to quote ourselves. We walk around and occasionally you're giving a speech or you're doing a table topics and a brilliant thought comes out of your mouth. Sit down, capture that, you'll have a quote. You can use that situations like this. Fortunately, I didn't write mine down.
Thank you.